So today we are going to talk about APIs. Okay, APIs, which stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, so before jumping to what are APIs, let's see what are what is necessary of it. Why APIs, right? So the question arises, okay, if you have written some code in your local PC, right, or laptop. Now the code is with you, and you know that it's a very good code that multiple people over different countries and over the internet can use it. Okay. Now the question is how you can share your code with the world. How you expose it, how you share with the world so that easily they can consume it. Okay, so there are two ways we can share your code with the share our code with the world. Okay, first is by creating package or module. Okay, so you might be familiar with the pip commands, right? Whenever the package is not installed, we do pip install, let's say pandas, right? So using this pip command, we install the module. Now, what is module? Module is basically a Python script which consists of multiple function which is already written for you. If we take example of pandas, if we install pandas, we can use multiple attribute within the pandas. For example, how to find sum of the data frame, or how to read a CSV and convert it into tabular format. Once it is in tabular format, how to calculate the minimum value, how to calculate the maximum value, how to uppercase, lowercase, right? All that functionalities are written for you, okay, and shared in the form of package or a module. Okay, and now like millions of users are using it, so it is highly reusable code, right? So this is how this is what one way to share your code with the world. So just create a package and upload it to internet, and whoever user needs it, they can easily install it via pip install and your package name. Okay, now second way is by creating API on the server. Okay, so before going to API, let's see what is the server. Okay, what is difference between client and server. Okay, so in simple term, okay, what we are doing is we are using the Chrome application from our laptop. We are connecting to internet, as easy as that. Okay, so our laptop becomes a client. Our laptop is nothing but client, okay, which is interacting with internet. This is internet. Okay, and Chrome is the application. Chrome is the application. Chrome is the application with which we can interact with internet. Okay, there can be multiple applications as well. Chrome is one of the application. Okay, clear. What is client? I hope it is clear. Okay, client is nothing but our local system with which we can connect to internet. Okay, now what is the server? Okay, what is the server? Server is nothing but again a computer which is very powerful, or the set of computers which is hosted by some companies. Okay, now this is server. This is a Google server. This can be a Facebook server. Okay, now when you want to use a search engine of a Google, okay, search engine is nothing but code, right? So how do you use Google's code or Facebook code? Okay, you go to their server via internet and then use it, right? So what you do in your Chrome application, from your client machine, your local machine, you connect to internet, and via internet you redirect it to Google server or Facebook server, whatever it is, whatever you type. Now, how to decide if you want Google's code or Facebook code? How you decide? Okay, there is something called URL. Okay, in Chrome application, you type URL. Okay, and using that URL, it is unique for each server. URL is unique for each server, and using that URL, it gets to know that which server it needs to connect to. Okay, simple demo. I if you type or simply google.com. Okay, so this google.com is basically a Google server. It redirected via internet to Google server, and whatever code Google has written, it came to my local machine. Okay, so the flow is basically first, second, and again it's basically, sorry, again it's giving response to your Chrome application. 3. Okay, so in simple format, what we are doing is using URL, we are connecting to Google server, and Google is performing some code, and whatever response is answer is there, it will again receiving back to the client machine. So whatever we send from client to server machine is known as request. Data sent from client to server is known as request. Okay, and the data opposite. What is response? The data sent from server to client is known as response. Basically 1, 2, these steps are nothing but request, and 3, whatever we are getting, that's a response. So this is basically what is work of API. Okay, you have some unique URL. Using that URL, you send the request to Google's to any server, and then you get back some response. Okay, now in this case, we are typing google.com. This is my URL. This is my URL, and I'm getting this web page as a response. This web page as a response. Okay, now this URL, one second. So I hope this is clear. The client is local machine, server is the actually company's server. This is also a powerful machine. Server is nothing but powerful machine or set of machines which are 24/7 running and connected to internet. Makes sense, right? So whatever so whenever we type google.com, every time you'll get response. It will never happen that let's say in late night I'm trying to hit the Google and it is down. It's nothing like that. The Google machines or Google servers are 24/7 running and always connected to internet, so that they can give you response immediately. Okay, now what info is required to connect to API, right? Now API is our google.com. Okay, so that's our URL. So the information required to connect to API is first is URL, also known as endpoint. Okay, in our case it is www.google.com. okay, URL is this one, google.com. And method is basically get or post. Okay, now what is the method? So whenever our client is sending the request, there are two types of method. First is get and second is post. For example, in this example, I'm simply typing google.com and I'm getting the result. I'm not passing any data with this URL, right? This is simple URL. So that means this is a get method. If we don't want to pass any data along with URL, then we usually use get method. Okay, I'll write it. If we don't pass any data with URL, then get method, else post method. Okay, now here in this case we are not passing any data, so by default it is get method. Now how to verify that, how to verify if it's a get or post method? Simply press F12 and this network console will get open. Okay, now just clear this. I'm again hitting this URL, okay, www.google.com. Now you see the first hit. In the first hit, you'll get the information. The URL is basically this whole one, http google.com, and method by default is get. Why get? Because we haven't passed any data to it. Okay, and the same URL, for the same URL, there is some unique IP as well. Okay, you see this IP. So the URL name can be internally get connected to the IP. Now what I do if I put this IP here, I'll get the same response. But if you see, URL has changed to google.com. So basically, this is our server ID, server IP address. Okay, server IP address, which is also known as host IP address, because the code is hosted, the Google code is hosted on Google server. So this is known as host IP address. I think it is clear. So instead of URL, think we can get host IP address as well. We can use host IP address as well. I'll write or. Host IP address. Okay. Now same thing with Facebook, facebook.com. Now this code, this whole code, this Facebook logo and this message and this button, everything is written on the Facebook server. How to see it? Press F12, go to network section, clear it, and again once again hit it. You'll see first one, facebook.com. The URL is facebook.com and IP address is this one. Now again, if I hit this IP address, proceed, you'll get Facebook same page. Okay, and it's internally get converted to facebook.com. So this is Facebook's IP address, and method is get. Why method is get? Because we are not passing any data along with URL. Okay. Now what happen if I want to enter something, right? Now when I hit login, I'll just clear this out. Now when I hit login, along with URL, I want to pass my own data as well, like this Prasad Boine, this email ID and password. I want to pass my own data along with this URL. Now let's see what happens. Okay, I just log in. Now simply just see here, the URL is common. Okay, and along with that we are passing some data. So we have passed email and password, but it gets encrypted. Okay, that's why we are seeing this data in this format. Okay, but focus on this one. What is method? It is post, right? Why post? Because we have passed some data with the URL. I hope it is clear. There are two methods, get and post. Okay, now we are good with the fundamentals, how request happens and how response we get, URL. But now we are using Chrome application, right? So is this the only application we can use internet with? No, right? So there is one more good way to interact or see this API is working. Okay, this application is known as Postman. Okay, this is known as Postman. You can simply download it for, it is available for Windows and this as well, Mac as well, Mac and Linux as well. Okay, now here you want to type your URL. Okay, URL is www.google.com. Okay, and the method is get. I'll simply send it. I'll simply send it and see this one. Now the actual response of API is in this format. You see all this. This is the code. So this is actually data provided by google.com API. Okay, and when we render this, okay, when we render this, then we get something like this Google window, which Chrome's does for us already, right? We see the page, Google page, like this, but internally the data sent was looks something like this. This is huge code, right? And all this code we have received in the form of response. If you remember this diagram, this response, in response we are receiving this code, and once we get this code, then it is get rendered to actual Google page. That's how API works. Okay, now the question is how to connect to API with Python code. How to connect via Python. Okay, first thing is we need a module. We need a module called request. I think it is by default present in the Python. We don't have to, pip install it. It is by default module. And second is, of course, URL. To connect to any API, we need URL. And third is the method. Okay, which can be get or post. Simple. Now I have already written a program for it. See this one. What we are doing here is basically we are importing the request module. Okay, we are taking one variable which is a simple string. Okay, simple string. Now for simplicity, I will take Google example. Endpoint equal to www.google.com. Okay, and from the request module there is one attribute or one function called get. Okay, get, and in that get we have to pass this URL, endpoint URL. Okay, so this is how we pass request from client machine to server. Which server? Google's server. Okay, and in return what we receive? Response. That's why I have created a new variable. Not necessary the name is the response. It can be very your own name, right? Response. Okay, and from that response we are extracting the text. Okay, let's try to run this program. Python API .py. Okay, sorry, I think we have to pass the full URL, which includes HTTPS as well. Okay, so we got lot of this code, right? And this code we have received from Google's server, Google server. And how do we connect to Google server? Via this URL. Okay, I think this is good enough. Now there are, along with apart from this normal APIs, right, there are some APIs or some let's say servers which can give you data in the form of dictionary in the readable format, because the above format was not readable, right? So for example, if you see this is again one server. Okay, what is server name? boardapi.com. Okay, and this complete is its URL. Now when we hit this URL, we'll get text in terms of normal dictionary, Python dictionary. Now again I'll run this program and I'll get the dictionary. Okay, so basically this code expose for a purpose. So there is one guy who get bored and he don't know what to do. Okay, so basically he has written an API which listed the things what you can do when you are bored. Right, so he has exported all the activities in his server, and by requesting and getting response from that server, we can get his code as well. So for example, what we can do when we are bored, organize your music collection. That's one activity. And what is the type of the activity? It's busy work. How many participant required? One participant. Okay, so basically this is the dictionary. Key, its value. Second key, its value. Third key, its value. So on and so forth. Okay, again if I hit the API, I'll get the different result. So now this time activity go for a run. Okay, type is recreational, participants 1, price 0. Okay, so basically what we are doing is we are hitting this server's API and we are getting the response. Okay, so basically, and what package we are using is request. In this scenario, my PC or my laptop is the client and this boardapi.com is a server. Okay, this complete is known as URL, and what method I'm using? Get method. Why? Because along with URL I'm not passing any extra data. That's why I'm using get method, and whatever response I got, I'm converting it to the text and then showing it, printing it on the console. I hope this is clear. So let's meet at the next session.